Awesome. All right. And that's it. We're live. So thank you, Zach, for joining us here today. We're super excited to find out some more things about Sage Intacct.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Maria.
Yeah. So we're going to give it a couple of minutes to just let people come on in and get the notification. Tell me a little bit about your weekend or your week. Has it been good?
It's been good. It's been good. It's end of the month, end of the quarter, so things are very busy here in software land. But no, it's been a good week. It's hot. Although Accordant is in New Jersey, which ironically I think is actually hotter than where it is in Florida. I live in South Florida, so trying to stay cool down here, but excited for the 4th of July weekend next weekend, and maybe go out and get some time on the water and do all the fun 4th of July things, watermelon, fireworks, all that good stuff.
Yeah, the fun stuff, and definitely some water, right?
Yes, absolutely. Why live? People give me crap all the time about I live in Florida and I never go to the beach, and it's 10 minutes from my house.
And it's right there, man. You know what else too is this one time, because my birthday is in December, right? So it's typically cold in Alabama. But one year I thought I was going to be really clever, and so I scheduled a birthday trip for myself to Miami. And I thought, I'm going to go where it's hot. Neener. And I go down there and it's like 50 degrees.
Well, that was probably the coldest day of the year in Miami that you made it there.
Yes. I literally made it for record-breaking cold weather temperatures. So
yeah, I quite literally tell people all the time that if we get more than 3 or 4 days in a row where it doesn't get above 50 or 55, that's our equivalent of a blizzard.
Yeah. And Florida folks, it's a lot different because like you said, they're just it's always sunny down there. So when it gets cold, they don't know what to do. Do you even have a winter coat?
Until I worked for Accordant, I did not. But since we do a lot of business in Canada, I actually had to invest. My wife gave me so much crap because she's from Maryland, and she always, ever since we were together, she's always like, "Oh, you have is sweaters and popovers and stuff." I'm like, "You don't have a coat." And finally, I don't remember if it was when I went somewhere, Toronto or something, and she's like, "You got to buy yourself a coat, Zach. You can't wear 3 different jersey knit sweaters over each other."
I mean, you could, but it wouldn't be very, very good, right? So, okay, well, that's a couple of minutes. So then we've talked a little bit. I heard you say Accordant. So tell me a little bit about your role and how that all and your background.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I have to say, I'm kind of a funny story before we start. I'm actually a little nervous. I'm curious who all is listening because this podcast got around because I went to the gym. So my wife and I go to Orange Theory, and I went to the gym a couple of weeks ago after you had posted on LinkedIn, and my gym coach looks at me and he goes, "You're doing a podcast." And I'm like, "How'd you know?" And he's like, "Well, I saw it on LinkedIn and this and that." And he's like, "I'm going to listen." So David, if you're listening, I hope if you're not, I'm going to know I mentioned you. But we've got people all outside of not just the construction industry listening to us here, hopefully today. So pressure's on me. But
no, that's always really fun. I did see it shoot up. I think it's so popular because you're going to be here. Honestly, the Sage Intacct is something that people have a lot of questions about. So it's a good one.
Awesome. Well, hopefully my my humble accounting background can be a little bit informative to people today. But yeah, no. So it's actually it's kind of interesting. My background. So I actually started when I was in college. I didn't even want to be in what I do today. I wanted to be a marine biologist, and ended up part of the way through college, I double majored with economics and knew kind of through college decided hey, I want to do something in business instead of natural sciences. And, I can go do that kind of stuff on the weekend and hobbies and diving and that kind of stuff.
That's right.
But started my career at a CPA firm down here in South Florida and worked there for about 5.5 years. And I was fortunate that most of my clients were using Sage Intacct. So literally I started with Sage Intacct as an end user, as an accountant. I didn't do implementation work. I didn't sell anything. I literally was just a humble bookkeeper that did accounting on Intacct. And kind of worked my way up over the years that I was there, and kind of worked up to like an outsourced controller level. And the firm I was at then started to get more into the technical side of things and kind of said, hey, you seem like you have a knack for the system and the kind of stuff. And, you know, that's how I got into doing more implementation and kind of consulting and configurations and those sorts of things. Then I joined Accordant in September of 2021. And came on full time as an implementation consultant. So I was one of our, what we call an implementation lead at Accordant, and was doing just Sage Intacct implementations day in and day out. And then did that for about 2 years, and then moved over. And technically I wear a dual title today of account executive and solutions architect, but it kind of kept trying to bamboozle me. And we're like, you know, you've got all this great accounting background and like implementation background. Like we could really use someone like you on the front end to work with our clients that, you know, want to dig into more of the nuts and bolts and, you know, really kind of like a solutions engineer role. So that's kind of like the 10-year span of like going from marine biology to accounting to implementation to solutions consulting.
That's awesome, Zach. And I love that too. That's actually, I started as just a humble bookkeeper too. And it's a lot different, you know. Now in school, I will say this, I switched my mind right before, like when I picked colleges. So for everyone out there, it's not a big surprise, but my little heart wanted to be a teacher, right? And then I realized how much money they bring home every month. And I said, oh, I cannot support a family by being a teacher. And so I switched. Birmingham Southern College actually had a special program at the time where they did a 4-year degree, but you got the equivalent of a master's. So everyone else who got their CPA had to sit for or go to school for their master's. And I just rock out with my regular undergraduate degree. And then of course I switched, and now here I am, a little bit like you, Zach, you know, like you get in the software, you learn it, and then boom. So, and it's hard, right? Because the software is it's really critical role, because some of the people that are creating these software platforms for us, they may not have had, you know, either bookkeeping experience or construction experience. And so it's a, you know, it's a pretty valuable thing to know and be able to help people with. And I'm glad to do it. So very good.
No, I'm definitely, I get that feedback all the time when I talk to people. You know, usually I'll give a little bit of intro when, you know, first time I'm talking to somebody, and it's funny because we'll get into a demo and someone will ask me about like, oh, you know, well, what about like vendor notifications when you issue an ACH or this and that? And, you know, I'll kind of say something like, oh, we can turn it on, but we can turn it on selectively because, like, you know, you're going to have those vendors that are annoying, and like you send them the notification and then they're going to want you to overnight the check because they don't want to wait 4 or 5 days to get it. And like literally like the light bulb goes off. People are like, you really were an accountant. Like you wouldn't know that these things are pain points unless you actually did accounting.
Yeah, or that they happen, you know. And so here's a good one. This is Ernest coming in, a poet with a plumbing background listening. So if everybody knows this, some of my favorite specialty trades there are going to be plumbers, because I really appreciate indoor plumbing, right? That's my favorite.
I love running water. It's a good thing. I appreciate all our plumbers out there.
Yes. Here, if we can get it to show up, the one I drink and then everything else. So very good. All right. So then tell us a little bit about what Accordant specializes in then.
Yeah. So Accordant. So one of the things that I was, you know, excited about coming over to Accordant, I guess it's going on 4 years now this fall.
You might like it, right?
I know, right? Like crazy. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
But, you know, I obviously, like I said, started at an accounting firm and, you know, really enjoyed that. And at the end of the day, I kind of jokingly tell people I'm a recovering accountant. But at the end of the day,
I needed that. Thank you.
But at the end of the day, I'm still like, I literally will break things down to debits and credits with people. So I'm still at heart an accountant, but Accordant. So we are specifically a software reseller. So we focus on primarily 90+% of our clients are some sort of Sage product. This year is actually our 20th anniversary. Our company was founded in 2005. Thank you. Yeah. And we actually, one of the cool things about Accordant is the founder of our company, Bob Sandlins, he actually used to work for Sage directly before, and then he worked for Timberline when Sage bought Timberline. Wow. And he has contacts going back 30, 40 years. And literally, I actually got to do one of the implementations where I think it was the second or third time in 30 years, I think, or 40 years that Bob helped them select new software.
Oh, how wonderful. Isn't that lovely when you have things like that?
So it's so cool to see that. But yeah, we're to kind of go back to the question, I guess we're software reseller. So I kind of think of us as like, we're the boots on ground support. Like, yeah, you have Sage, they're the publisher, they're building the software and doing updates and that sort of stuff. But we're the ones that are, helping you architect it to meet your needs, doing the implementation, supporting you through go live, after go live, helping with integrations. We have a custom development team for like building custom apps and integrations and stuff. So we're really like that go-to resource. And 90+% of our customers are in the construction and real estate industry. So we do have some other industries that we work within, but by and large, we're working with general contractors, specialty subcontractors, multifamily builders, single family builders, developers, property managers. It's a very, as you know, Maria, very specialized industry that, at the end of the day, accounting is accounting, but construction accounting is got a lot more in it. So that's kind of where we like to focus and kind of have our niche and, our strong suit.
Yeah, that's a great point. It is. It's honestly just as specific as like nonprofit accounting, right? Or something like that. It's got its own rules and regulations, and they're a little vague, so that helps people hang out in the gray area, which recovering accountants really appreciate, right? That's how we used to get paid, is being able to navigate the gray area. So. Exactly. Very good. Okay. And let me get to my I've got a special list today. So
I hope it's the same as my list.
I think it is. Like you said, I hope so. All right. So tell us a little bit then about what cloud software is and why we should care, right? Like, what are those benefits? What are we going to get switching to cloud software? Everyone talks about it, right?
Yeah. No, and it's honestly a great question. And it's something that I think, and this is honestly one of the things that I was personally excited about coming to Accordant and our extreme focus on construction and real estate is because, hopefully I don't offend anybody here today, but I feel like technology wise, the construction and real estate industry is 10, 15 years behind most other industries in terms of adoption. As I've worked more and more, because the CPA firm I was at, like, we did construction, but we also had other clients. So I had, nonprofit clients. I worked with hospitality and other industries. And I was shocked when I started focusing 100% on construction of like, wow, this isn't just like an anomaly of like a few, like this is, these are people that are making upgrades that other people were making in 2005, 2010, 2015. And cloud is a big part of that. What is the cloud? And, I would say cloud was kind of the big buzzword before AI became the buzzword the last couple of years. And why I think it's really good is it's really, it takes the IT burden off of you as a company and like strategically thinking, running, owning, operating a business, there's segments, there's marketing and there's IT and there's operations and there's HR and all these different pieces to it. And the more that you can focus on what makes your company special and what makes you money and makes you profitable is just going to help you scale your company. Like, you're a plumbing company and like you're really good at plumbing. Like, the more time you can devote and the more of your resources within your company you can devote to being the best plumbing company, like that's going to make you successful. Right. Like, yes, you need HR and IT and all these other sorts of things, but like the more you can focus on that, the better off your company is going to be. And using cloud software, in my opinion, really frees up a lot of that IT bandwidth. First of all, I mean, you're not having a server in-house. You're not dealing with backups. Like, you probably wouldn't be surprised, but other people would be surprised at how often people talk to me, oh yeah, I have, an IT company that they do my backups every week. And then something crashes and fails and they have a ransomware attack or whatever. And, oh yeah, we didn't do the backup for the last 8 weeks. So you just lost the last 8 weeks worth of your data. Wow. And like those sorts of things. Yeah. And those sorts of things, really are outsourced, so to speak, with the cloud, because they're all, that's the cloud provider. It's Sage's problem to deal with all of that, with security, with backups, with recovery, restore points, all that sort of stuff. And the other piece really is that like anywhere, anytime access, just like with Procore or BuildOps or MITRE or any of these other, cloud construction solutions that are coming out and hitting the market by storm the last couple of years is I can log in on my phone, or I always tell people in demos I do, like I could go to a hotel lobby and, log in on my computer with 2-factor authentication, and it's not VPN, remote desktop. I got to call Sally back at the office to pull this report for me because I'm not at my desk that has that certain software downloaded on it. So for me, it's really those two things. It's getting rid of that overhead that isn't value add to your company, as well as, again, just that mobility and that freedom of access at anywhere, anytime access.
Yeah, because I'll say construction workers sure do like to travel. Right? And so if they can't have it on their laptop, then it's a delay. And we don't have time for delays in construction because that means money.
Exactly. Time is money.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Do you know what my favorite part about all of that you just said is the server rooms, right? Do we all remember that? Do we still have some, right? And lots of the talks, honestly, about, when you're having those strategic business meetings and different things like that, it's like, oh, well, we need to add to the server. No, you don't need to, and you don't even have to, right? There's other things that can be done, and that's a lot. I hear that they take a lot of power, right? That's your power bill, space, security. When somebody's got to lock it up, somebody's got to be in charge of it. I don't know if this ever happens, but what if like a wire melts or something? I don't know. It's just a big bulky situation that comes with its own limitations. So that's why I'm a cloud fan. Not that and I just say it's up in the clouds. I don't know much about on in the background as far as like writing the programs and different things like that. I understand it's a bit of a different language than the other platforms have been written in previously. So that's helpful.
Yeah. No, it's really, like I said, it's really taking that headache away. And it's actually ironic because there still are some people today that they like that physical. I can go and open the closet door and see the server in there. But by and far, that's definitely, things are trending away from that because of all the issues you just mentioned with it. Security, physical updates, something just goes wrong. Hey, I've got to buy a new server every 5, 6, 8 years, and the expense related to that, and downtime and updates, and you have to take the system offline. And we all love it when we're in the middle of something and Windows says, no, we're updating right now. This is all stopping, and we're going to restart now.
Right now. My favorite is that the accountants will stay in there until the very last minute. And sometimes you'll have a couple of stragglers that are still in there because they're trying to get their last little entries in, right? Yeah. Or run that big report that they need before everything gets shut down. So very good. Okay, awesome. So that's cloud software. So then what are some things to consider when it comes to implementing a new ERP, right? Because when we pick out something like Procore, it's like, what does the field team need? How can we serve them? Does it integrate with our bookkeeping software? But when we choose a new bookkeeping software, it's kind of scary. And what I've noticed, Zach, can you tell me if this is the same for you? But what I've seen is that so many, honestly, the majority of new implementations or people that reach out for help, they're still operating with the same bookkeeping software they picked out in, and I don't want to, upset anybody, but we'll say like 1998 or maybe 92, right? And it's the same
company this morning. It's been on their system since 97.
So there we go. So a lot's changed since then, right? Like, everyone can, let's just take the example of Excel, right? In 1998, Excel was a very different place than it is today. And so now you can imagine everyone who's back there, we're talking about, the program languages that they're writing in to communicate with the software and stuff. And it's different. Even the one that I learned in college, I have programmed stuff before, but it was like Linux. way. Yeah. There's like 3 or 4 languages that have been created since then. So yeah. I don't program, but I can help programmers. So how about you there?
Yeah, no, I think as far as like considerations, people making the move is like, to me, it's having internal alignment is a big piece of it. And like being honest with yourself about the process, because I will say some of the more astute switchers that I talk with, like they'll openly say like, hey, like, what should I look out for? Like, where could this go sideways? Like, where are problems going to be? And I actually love it when people ask me that question, because it's like, hey, it's not like you against me or anybody like fighting. Like it's just us solving the problem together and getting everything out on the table and being aligned about it.
Yeah,
I look at it as like it's a partnership. Like we're both here working together towards a common goal to help modernize your business. Like I don't view it as your team versus my team. Like we are one team working on a project together.
Yep.
And I guess just to kind of like double click on that and talk a little bit more is, projects that I don't see go well are ones where people, it's like, oh, the president wants to do this and nobody else below them is in on it. And they're just kind of like, yeah, we got to do it. We got to do it. We got to do it. And like those I don't see go well because they don't, not that there's bad intention and not that maybe that it's a bad decision for the company, but it's just including those other stakeholders and of like, hey, this is why we're doing it. And this is why we care. This is why it's going to make your job better. Or easier, or you be more effective at what you do. And, a lot of people, change is scary for anybody, regardless of software. And, people like, I'm going to lose my job or this is going to happen if something becomes too easy. And it's really, it's not about that at all. Like it's about taking out the routine. Like I'm sitting here and putting AP invoices in by hand to every single line item. Like, okay, we've got technology that can do a lot of that. And then you can spend your time on, reviewing them and talking with your vendors and getting better credit terms with your vendors. And like
that's my
you
favorite.
can spend that time on more proactive things that are going to, again, key efficiencies for your company, that are going to make you more profitable and successful. Like you getting better credit terms and, helping with cash flow is way more fruitful to your plumbing company than sitting there and hand keying all those invoices in the system from your subs.
Yes. And I love that example because that is real life. Like people really do think that the technology is going to take their job. And especially in construction, there's no way it ever could, right? No. Like there's too much that a like seasoned, experienced, that's the word I was looking for, person knows about everything that's going on that has to be able to kind of interact with that software to make sure it's doing what it's supposed to do. Now, the having extra time to call your vendors, I really want to call this out. This is a huge tip for anybody who hasn't done it yet, or maybe you just forgot and haven't done it in a while because maybe 2 or 3 years you'd check back. If you haven't asked your vendors for special payment terms or different kind of discounts, stuff like that, make sure that you're reviewing your list and going through and asking those folks to do those sort of things, because chances are, if you're a repeat customer, right, they're going to want to keep you. And especially after a couple of years, you pay on time, they get to see who you are, you see who they are. And then you can call them and say, hey, these were net 30, but can we get some, little bit of 10 something net 30, right? And you can kind of get in there that way. So that's a good one. But yeah, so the goal here with technology and anything that I ever do is to just make the person's life easier, right? The person doing the work needs to have an easier time because, to your point, we don't need to be getting shoulder rotator cuff stuff while we're inking hundreds. We're talking about lots of invoices every day. Just think about the ones on your job site and then think about how many jobs your accountant or corporate accountant has to review and go over or key for. So it's a lot. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that to me is really, getting everybody aligned and on the same page, being honest about what you know, what you don't know. Like, hey, these are things like every time I would go into an implementation and a discovery is like, not only tell me what you want to fix, but tell me what you really like what works for you that you don't want to change. And like, you want to make sure we preserve this process, or what are things that, you really want to dig into? Or like, I always love it when companies come to me and ask like, what's your best practice? And it's like, hey, I'm not necessarily here to tell you how to run your business, but here's what I've seen other people do that's made them successful. A lot of times that'll spark, we hadn't thought about doing it that way. Like we may not do it exactly that way, but maybe we'll tweak our process a little bit. So for me, being honest and having everybody aligned internally, really spending the time in discovery. Like I always, and I'm sure you go back and look at all my timesheets and stuff. Like I was always someone that was big. Like I would spend a ton of time in discovery when I would do it, because to me, like kind of like the old phrase, like an ounce of prevention is a pound of cure. Like if you really dig in on discovery and like understand what's going on, and again, are open and honest, and like people aren't being defensive, like it's just an honest conversation between everybody, like you can come to answers. And then really the rest of the implementation and deployment from there should be, I don't want to say like easy, you do it with your eyes closed, but like if you're aligned in discovery and like you've got everything, like this is what we want to execute upon, then it's just executing. Like then it's just, you know, you've worked out the lines and, you know, and painted where you want to do it. Now you're just, you know, shoveling the dirt. Like now you're just executing upon the plan you've made.
Yeah. Yeah. And then too, what I've seen, Zach, is that when people have, yes, internal alignment, right? Like let everybody know why we're doing this and how it's going to benefit them. But then also not having enough people internally dedicated to it, right? Yeah. And so you'll think, oh, well, we've got a consultant for that. Accordant's going to handle everything. Don't worry about it. But they've got to have somebody to communicate with. Yeah. And not only that, they can't send out company comms for you or answer your company phone. There's all kinds of things that they can't do. And it's not because they don't want to, right?
Yeah.
We need that other part of the team, right, for the implementation.
Yeah. And I actually, it's ironic. We kind of have a little bit of a joke that generally it's actually like, ironically, the people that want to go the fastest and move through the process the fastest are the people that have the least resources, that are like, they're just like, oh no, we're just going to go. We're going to go. And I always, again, tell people like, if you can't go that fast, that's totally fine. Like I would rather make this process be another 2 months and like us go through it at a cadence it's not going to burn your team out, versus like push to meet some sort of an artificial deadline, or just because so-and-so wants it done by this date. And then like somebody quits in the process, or like it's underwater, and then people resent it. Then they don't want to use the system because they were like forced into doing it and they didn't have time. And like at the end of the day, I also kind of like to optimistically look at things as people want to do their jobs well.
They do.
Like people naturally want to do good. They feel good when they produce good work, when they, you know, when they're, you know, helping the company and working with the team successfully. And when you put them in a situation that compromises that and they can't get things done, or they're shortcutting to get things done on a certain time, like they get upset at themselves. And then a lot of times they get upset at other people and they lash out internally or at us or whoever, because, you know, they feel like they're failing because they were put under circumstances that weren't fair to them, which a lot of times they aren't. But, you know, just being honest about that to me, and exactly like you said, like understanding that bandwidth and what, you know, capabilities are and timing and all that sort of stuff. Like to me, just like you said, just being honest with it. Like I said, I've said that word probably 8 times now, but that's just the best.
It's really helpful, right? Yeah. Just say what you need and then we can help you, right?
Exactly.
So that's a good one. Yeah. I imagine, you know, there's honestly, and I see it 2 different types too. When we're talking about internal teams, I see folks that dedicate existing employees. So translation, they already have a day job, but you're asking them to do something else on top of it. Even if it's some, you know, the software that they're going to use the most every day, all day, it's still not their day job. And then, you know, having that dedicated person, even if you don't hire them right away, even, you know, just having somebody to do that, or dedicating a resource in IT maybe to be a project manager for that implementation, right?
Yeah, exactly. And knowing who, I mean, we always help with people dedicating out roles and resources, but like a big one is, you know, we have specific roles and resources that we like to dedicate out, but a big one is who are your decision makers versus who are your end users, and then doing that by module or function within the system. So we, you know, our decision makers, we call them SMEs or SMEs or subject matter experts. You know, those are the people that, hey, this is how the approval workflow should function. This is how the job setup should work. These are the fields that should be required upon data entry, et cetera, versus the end users of, hey, they need to know how to do it, but they're not signing off on this is how the workflow works. This is the fields that are required. And knowing that, having your team structure, like that's also very important, because again, I've seen people get into implementation and, you know, they've got people that are in training sitting in on decision-making sessions. They're like, I don't know, like this isn't my job, and vice versa. People that were decision makers that are in training sessions and they're like, well, I've already made all these decisions. Like, why am I sitting in a training session? Like,
I don't want to know how to do it. I want to report for it.
Roles, and everybody's got a seat on the bus. It's just putting them all in the right seat.
That's a good one. I love that. Everybody's got a seat on the bus. Okay. So let's see that. So I don't want to run out of time. It looks like we've got about 30 minutes. So I think I want to head to Sage, if that's okay. And then we'll kind of cover.
I can talk for 4 hours, so direct me. My wife loves it when people tell me what to do, because otherwise I'll just keep going.
That's awesome. Well, I don't have a handler like that, so I get myself in trouble.
I need a handler.
Yeah. I need a handler. All right. So while you're opening everything up, what is Sage? I'm just kidding. That's on me. I got it. What is Sage Intacct, and what sets it apart from other ERP or accounting solutions, right? So there's a few major players. We got Acumatica, QuickBooks. Sorry if anybody's on there. I love you anyway, but please come to the bright side. They have cookies.
So a couple things, and can I don't know, is the screen share up? I guess I'll do that.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, we're up. And here we can
perfect.
let's make it bigger too for folks, because for me, when I'm trying to watch something, I don't really want to be distracted by beautiful people. So let's put it up on everybody can make it.
Perfect. I was gonna say, because I'm gonna look this way. My main screen's actually in the other
Perfect, man.
A lot of the left side of my face here. So obviously we talked about cloud native architecture. I mean, that's a big piece of it. I mean, Acumatica's cloud, but there's still surprisingly a lot of, again, kind of construction industry being behind. There's a lot of other solutions, and I want to be positive. I don't want to be disparaging, so I'm not going to say names, but there's a lot of other solutions out there that, aren't cloud, or they're like hosted cloud, where it's not on your server, but it's technically hosted somewhere. And it is kind of still like a remote desktop to get into it. Or there's some solutions that they're kind of like hybrid cloud, where certain modules are in the cloud, but not all the modules, and it was like an on-premise system that they're kind of like module by module moving to the cloud. So I would, again, just kind of mention the cloud native architecture is it is fully true cloud native, all the pieces of it. Another thing, and I'm just kind of going to click through some other tabs here, but sure. Intacct has quarterly releases. So this is a big piece that, people, a lot of questions I get, especially moving from older software, is, hey, I bought the software and it's a perpetual license, and now I have to pay an annual subscription for Sage Intacct. And, why am I paying a subscription when I paid for it one time before? and I mean, Intacct every quarter is, in my opinion, like almost a new product, in the sense that there's so much that comes out every quarter. And these are like all publicly available online, the release notes, but I want to come in and see what was new within accounts payable, or I want to see what's new within, accounts receivable or construction or whatever it may be. I mean, I tell people all the time that I've been using Intacct for almost 10 years. It is so much vastly more robust than it was when I first started with it. And I tell people also, or go ahead.
Sorry, I was saying I didn't realize it had been going on that long.
Yeah, no. Intacct has been, I mean, like I said, it's at its core, it still kind of looks and feels similar, but yeah, it's been, I mean, it's developed so much. And I tell people all the time also, like, if I stepped away, like I took a 2-year sabbatical or something like that and came back, like I would probably be lost. Like, it's literally something you like. And that's one of the reasons I love it, and I've stuck with it for so long, is because it's not the same platform. It's not like, oh yeah, they've only made 2 updates in the last 5 years, and it's you knew it 5 years ago, it today. Like Intacct, like they add so much all the time. So to me, those quarterly releases, like that's a huge value, and a lot of the releases actually come from things that people ask for. And let me see if I can click through and find one here.
You're okay. While you're looking, I'll just go ahead and say, that's an awesome feature, because how many times have you, that's another good thing to look out when you're looking for software is, are they still taking suggestions? Because if they're not, that means they're very proud of their product. They think it's perfect and amazing. And, they don't have any plans or, near plans in the future to do anything about it, because they think it's so great, which I love that for them. Right. And maybe it is a really awesome platform, and the needs of people are always changing. And so if their needs are changing, then we also need to change.
Yes. And I can't find one when I'm looking for it, but they have, they'll put like this little banner thing up here that says, this idea came from you. Like it was part of like the suggestion center that they have online.
Nice.
So that's one thing that, again, I really, in addition to the cloud, is that quarterly release and constantly coming out with new features is a big bonus. A lot of other solutions, you know, they're minor updates, or maybe it's a once a year type of thing. So I mean, in the software world, to have this many updates every single quarter, like that, there's a lot of velocity there.
Yeah.
Some of the other things that I'll mention that I think make Intacct kind of unique here are, one, it's a very modular system. So, you know, there's all the core things you'd expect in an ERP system: cash management, general ledger, AP, procurement. But then there's all sorts of add-on features. So you do a ton of intercompany activities, and you need automated intercompany consolidations.
Ooh.
Or, you know, you're a company that's very inventory heavy and you need inventory tracking, or you have a lot of fixed assets and you need a fixed asset module. Like, these are things that you don't have to buy all day one. Like, the term I always tell people is land and expand. Like,
ooh,
you can get into Intacct, you know, kind of land, like it's going to be a big upgrade from whatever you're on now anyway, and then expand your usage over time. Like, okay, maybe fixed assets is kind of cool, but like you don't have a ton of assets, but 3 or 4 years from now, like, yeah, we're really asset heavy. Okay, we can add the fixed assets module, and then like there's nothing that precludes you. It's not like, oh, I didn't get it up front, so I can never get it type of situation.
Sure. Hey, quick question. I have one of my own. This one's just curious. So if we did something like that and we decide, okay, well, now we do need fixed assets or equipment or inventory, is there an extra charge? Like, or is it by module, or how is the subscription, I guess, model for you guys?
So that's a great question. And that's also, in my opinion, part of the beauty of the modular design is what I call the Intacct core is basically everything in here: order entry to dashboards, kind of this, you know, cash management, AP, AR, like that's kind of the core feature set that comes with like the base fee of the system. All of these higher level modules are added on, and they are an additional cost, but they're added on as you need them. So to me, the benefit of that is again, unlike other systems where it's kind of like you have to buy the whole thing. And you may say, well, I need inventory, but I don't need consolidations, or vice versa. It lets you very much cherry pick what you need. Like, I need consolidations, I need fixed assets, but I don't need inventory, and I don't need expense management.
Right.
So it lets you scale and kind of, I guess, scale your subscription and your expenditures as you need them. And you can also remove things over time. So maybe you use fixed assets, and 3 years from now, like, you move and you started leasing all your equipment, and like now you're not buying as much equipment and you don't have a need for it. You can turn the module off.
Right.
So that to me is a benefit. Open API is something else that's big with Intacct. So that I should have touched on probably first. So Intacct being open API means it's extremely integration friendly with any other system. API, for the non-tech people on the phone, means application programming interface, and means that any solution out there that you want to integrate with, you can write any integration you want, and all the documentation is publicly available. You can push and pull data in and out of Intacct via API.
I love that, Zach. And that makes me have another question there too, because, you know, with Sage 300, which happens to be my friend, you've got My Assistant for all your reporting needs and stuff. So now with Sage Intacct, do you just use Power BI, or do you guys have something else that kind of aggregates all your reports there and sends them out automatically on a schedule?
So it really depends, I will say. And there's actually something kind of an interesting topic I want to say on this, since you brought Power BI up, is there's a ton of native reporting within Sage Intacct. So it's very intuitive to build reports within this system that previously you would have had to have had an Office connector or some sort of like an external database with BI or something plugged into it to, you know, get various reports and dashboards and graphs and things like that.
Oh, wow. Look at those. And that's all native inside of Sage Intacct.
Yep. So like what I'm showing here, and I'll like click through a few of them here, like these are all native data. Like these are all ones I've built. They're fully customizable. You know, they're totally specific to what you want. This is all native. Like, definitely, like, there's way more power here over these legacy systems that don't have dashboards, or you have to use an Office connector or some sort of like a BI from an external database or something to get after the data. Like, you can do a lot of that in Intacct. Now, it was the one thing I kind of wanted to mention since you brought up BI is there still are, I would say, a lot of people that move the data out of Intacct via the API, because I would say the big thing, one of the big trends I've seen in the industry the last year or two is people moving to data lakes using like a Snowflake or Azure or something like that.
Yep.
Not necessarily because they can't get the reporting they want, but because they're combining data from a bunch of different systems. So they're pulling data from Procore, they're pulling data from Intacct, they're pulling data from, Service Titan, like whatever these other systems are, and they're pulling them into these huge data lakes, like a Snowflake or something, and then sitting a Tableau, Power BI on top of that. And I will make a shameless plug here for our development team. So we actually have a in-house development team.
Nice.
That builds, like I kind of mentioned a little earlier, like custom applications and things like that for within the Intacct platform and reports and things for our customers. And we had customers that were asking for like, hey, like we love Intacct's dashboards, but we need Power BI for, whatever other things from this data lake we have. And we actually, one of the things that we built a number of our customers use is an iframe within Intacct to run your Power BI reports within Intacct without having to leave Intacct.
How amazing is that? So you still have the data lake and everything else like that, but it feeds back into Sage Intacct. So your accountants and everything are still just in that one system.
Yep, exactly. So you don't have to log out, go into BI, come back. Like I could literally come in here and run a Power BI dashboard off of Procore data and be right here in Intacct and not have to leave.
That's awesome. And then too, like, when you had My Assistant, you've got to like schedule those reports to go out and everything and be emailed to folks. And so with this, all they have to do is log in, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I could talk, reporting is kind of my baby. I used to write all my own reports when I was an accountant. But Intacct is very nice with getting data in and out. You can, run reports obviously live within the system, but you can export them out to PDF, to Excel, to CSV. You can email them right out of the system. You can also schedule reports to run. So if there is somebody that like, hey, they don't want to log in and look at a dashboard, or, for whatever reason, they would prefer to just get it pushed to them once a week or something. You can also schedule reports to be run out automatically and get emailed out. And actually a cool thing that Intacct has that it's kind of like one of those small hidden features, but when I always tell it to people like, man, that's really cool. Is you can actually, if anybody uses like cloud storage, like a Dropbox or OneDrive or something, you can actually link your like Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive to Intacct. And when these reports are scheduled, it'll automatically save them in that shared, that OneDrive or Dropbox folder or whatever.
How awesome is that? Because let me tell you how many people everybody, right? Raise your hand. If you have somebody in your team that is in charge of downloading and uploading special documents that come from an email or, for that PSR meeting, whatever it is that you're going to do, there's literally somebody dedicated. Now that's not all they do, right? But it's somebody's job to literally put those documents in a folder. They don't just appear unless you've got some kind of integration that will load that for you. And we can do that in 2025.
Yep.
Yeah. That's a good one. Okay, so then that was a lot of reporting, which you're right. I do get kind of distracted because the aggregated data and everything else is where I get really excited after we do all of our clicks and our logging and everything. Then what, right? And so that's what I love. So let's go back a little bit. And can you show us some AP automation features that are your favorite, right? Because that's near and dear to my heart. I once upon a time used to hand key manually invoices, and there's been once or twice where I had to delay my trip to the beach because everything had to be in before a certain date, right? So what kind of automation do you have for us?
So a couple things on this, and this is actually one of the features, and I do want to make sure we talk about AI a little bit here too, but this is a perfect start because there's AI here. This is a feature that Intacct added in, I want to say like a year and a half ago now. And like our customers love it. Like so many of them are using it, is the ability to use the embedded AP automation within the AP module. So you can either drag and drop, upload copies of your bills, whether it's a PDF or a scan, like a PNG or something, or you can email them actually directly to the system.
Nice.
And Intacct uses 3 pieces of technology to start coding the invoice for you. So it uses, the first one is OCR, optical character recognition, is what that stands for. And it basically takes the data off the invoice and it just digitizes it more or less. The second 2 pieces are AI and machine learning, where it's taking that data it scraped off the invoice and actually starting to fill in the blanks of the invoice for you. So this is, and I will preface with people, I tell people this anytime I show them this, I Googled fake invoice. I know this invoice. I know that as an accountant, your eyes are, you're cringing because like the numbers don't even foot on it and there's no vendor name and due date. Literally, yeah, I literally Googled fake invoice and loaded it in and was like, I'm just curious what it does with it. And it actually did a pretty good job. I mean, it grabbed, the date that I had loaded it up in, it grabbed my bill number, it attached a copy here, it broke out all my line items, brought my memos in. So like, even though it's a crappy invoice that it's ever seen before, like it actually did a decent job at interpreting it.
It still works. And you know what I love though too, Zach, is that this is the perfect opportunity to reference back what we were talking about earlier. You cannot get rid of the actual person. He literally just loaded a fake invoice and it worked, right? Now you're saying, oh my gosh, why would I even buy this software? Well, golly, guys, it's not posted or anything. Nobody's even approved it. So what you would need is your accountant reviewer now to go in and say, we don't know invoice number 982093. We don't know. I can't read the thing. I'm so old. I mean, I'm older. Was that Philip Sanford, something like that? Felipe, okay. Yeah, you're going to need a person to look at that and say, we don't know Felipe. Who is this? There is no way we're going to pay him $20,000. So this is one way that you can, you've got to catch those fraudsters, because if they get your AP at, accordant.com email, they can send an invoice in there and it'll get OCR'd and it'll show up in your queue to review. So that's why we need our people. Exactly.
And the nice thing is because of that AI and machine learning, it'll get smarter over time and try to fill more and more in for you. But regardless of, even if it thinks it fills 100% of the fields in, it will never post anything without a human physically looking at it and saying, yeah, I'm okay with this. So that's one of the neat things is like, even though, like I said, it brought my bill number and attachment and this and that, but it didn't fill out any of my coding or anything. The AI and machine learning is actually looking for trends. Like, oh, when you get a bill from this vendor, you always code it to materials expense. Or when you get something with, web development in the memo, like you code that to IT, or, it looks for those sorts of things. So as you run more and more invoices through it, it will fill more and more fields in. But again, even if it's like, hey, we've seen this invoice 400 times, it's always coded exactly the same way, it's never, ever, ever going to post something without the human saying, yeah, I agree. It's always going to bring it in a draft state.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's super important, because we've really got to do some checks and balances before we just kind of let anything into our bookkeeping. What do we call T charts, right? Or T accounts.
Yeah, T accounts,
yeah. That's fine. I remember just having flashbacks right now. I remember walking into a controller's office one time and just looking at him going, look, I know I'm having a hard time. I'm going to get it, I promise. But can you just write this out in a T account for me so I can
I still do that today with people on the phone, where I'll talk through somebody's got a weird rev rec procedure or something they go through, and literally I'll pull a spreadsheet up and I'll say let's just do the debits and credits in a spreadsheet together.
yeah and make sure we're all on the same page, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Perfect. Okay. So what else? Looks like we've got about 11 minutes. So anything about AP before we move on to, looks like inventory, equipment, and vendors.
Yeah. So just a couple other kind of automation things in the system I wanted to touch on. So obviously AI has been a huge buzzword recently, and I don't have it in here. Sage is literally in the process of rolling it out right now, but Sage is rolling out what they're calling Copilot, which will actually dynamically look through your data and, help you with your subledger reconciliations, help you with variance analysis, budget versus actual comparisons. And this is literally something that's they're in the process of rolling this out right now. So I can't show it to you other than show this page, but I did want to call out that is another area that Sage is kind of embedding AI into the platform. One other thing, and one other kind of like, even though it's not related to API thing, is they've also recently added in an AI like kind of search assistant tool.
Nice.
So Intacct has, in my opinion, a super well built help center. But you can come in, and I kind of think of it as like a chat GPT. Like you can actually come in and without having to comb through and read help articles and, knowledge articles and stuff, you can just come in and say, tell me how to set up a new customer. And literally like chat GPT, you can just prompt it and then it will give you responses back with links out to various help articles. So this is pretty slick, and this is actually something that everybody has now. This is free and included in everyone's environment. The ability to go through and do those various items.
Look how nice that is. Can I tell you? I love that because raise your hand, right? Even though we can't see you. How many times have you, like every platform I feel like has got that, here's our article list. If you need some help, have a nice day. Yeah. And then you go in there and it's like absolute garbage trash. So to be honest, I've never, at least in accounting softwares, I just don't even pay attention to it. I'll go ask my friend instead, or just plain Google.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. I mean, like I said, I think Intacct's got a very well built help center, but having that ability just to literally ask questions and just, that's the way the world is going. Like that's what we're used to, is picking our phone up and saying, hey, Google, can you help me with this? And, that's the way our accounting technology should be going too. Yeah.
So that's a really good one. All right. So
that good one. And then one other thing, if you can humor me before we go into inventory.
Yeah, I know there's so much. You're right. I do like another hour. Go ahead.
Or we can go to inventory. Never mind. I can't give everybody my secrets out on one podcast. So
I know. Well, here's what I'm just thinking, that maybe part two, because the other really big part that we still have on our list, Zach, do you know what it is? It's payroll.
Oh yeah, we haven't even talked about payroll yet.
And the people are going to want about payroll. So why don't we leave it at this? We'll say, for folks interested or that have needs, Sage Intacct does have inventory equipment, different stuff like that. Of course, every bookkeeping software is going to have a place for vendors, and getting that in there. So let's talk a little bit about payroll, because if we want to talk about people gossiping on the street, right? Mm-hmm. This is what they've been talking about. And maybe, what has it been? Maybe 3 or 4 years. I always lose a year because I'm thinking about COVID, right? But it's been a couple of years from when you guys first kind of made the big push to say, hey, Intacct. And then everybody was like, okay, but what about payroll? Because payroll is very, very important to our construction friends.
Yeah. Yeah, so payroll actually, and hopefully Sage doesn't ban me from all their content after this. So we have a payroll module. So Sage does have a payroll module embedded within Intacct. It's like 300 payroll or 100 payroll. You want to do payroll within the Sage Intacct environment, and you want to process it in-house and cut your checks and union reporting, all that sort of stuff. Like, it's in there. Yes, there's a payroll module.
Right.
Being an accountant, or a recovering accountant,
it's still hard to forget sometimes.
I am not a fan personally of in-house payroll. Like, I know there's some companies that will die on the sword of nobody can do my payroll. I've got to do my payroll in-house. So yes, we do have an answer there. Yes, there is a payroll module, but really, in my opinion, there's a couple of really, really slick, payroll solutions, kind of the name, outsource payroll, co-source payroll, SaaS payroll. There's a couple different terms for it, but payroll processing. Right. One is, and I have the in-house payroll module turned on in my environment, but Sage has a very deep partnership with ADP. And there is an ADP, it's called Sage Intacct Payroll by ADP. Basically, it's a partnership between the two companies, where it's within kind of a Sage user interface, and it's all connected in with Sage Intacct, so that, you set up a new employee and that employee automatically gets set up in the system, and you set up a new department, it automatically sets up, and job cost flows through, and journal entries and all that sort of stuff. But the guts of it, really, like the core code is ADP's processing engine, and they're filing your 940s, 941 state returns, all that sort of stuff.
Oh, that's a nice part, though. That is a nice part.
Yeah, so that is what I like. That is a big one that I recommend to people. That's got really, really deep, because it's really the guts of it are ADP Workforce Now. It's got really deep functionality around HR with, benchmarking and onboarding and employee reviews and learning center. And like, there's a ton of features that go in, it's really a full blown HRIS system within the payroll solution.
That's pretty nice. And so then, and also too, because words I just want to make sure that we say out loud too, like our certified payroll or our prevailing wage rates, that kind of stuff. So we would, if we had those sorts of things, then you're saying it'd be best for us to do that ADP partnership, right?
Yeah, so that's actually a good point, and I didn't mention that, and I'll just address it head on. I know ADP doesn't have a great kind of reputation on the street for construction payroll.
Oh, I didn't do that. I was fresh to that one. I mean,
but so they actually, so kind of like a little bit of inside baseball. So ADP, I don't remember what year it was, like you said, 22, 23, 21, something like that. They acquired IDI, which was construction payroll.
Okay.
And basically they've embedded that into the platform so they can do full union reporting, job costing, prevailing wage, Davis-Bacon, all that kind of stuff. They can handle all of that, where 10 years ago they couldn't. Like, before they acquired all that IP related to the IDI, that was not something that they had the capabilities to do. Now, for those of you that are looking for kind of maybe a little different thing on the payroll side, or still have that stigma around ADP, I mentioned Intacct's open API for integrations and such, but Intacct has a marketplace with, I think, and it changes all the time, 500, 600, 700 different companies that have pre-built integrations into Sage Intacct. Two of them that I really, really like are on the payroll HR side. One is called Lumber, and then the other one in here, I'm sure it's on this page somewhere, is Miter. So Lumber and Miter are two construction specific payroll HR solutions. So literally all they do is construction. They don't do payroll for any other types of companies other than construction. And they both have pre-built integrations with Sage Intacct. The reason I say that, A, if you have the stigma with the ADP, or B, you just want a little different functionality, is although Miter and Lumber today don't go quite as deep on the HR side, they do have HR functionality, but there's just ADP being in the industry for so long, they have a little bit more. Lumber and Miter both have some really, really cool functionality around like scheduling, expense reporting. I'm trying to think some other things they have. Miter's recently built some things in for like field reporting. So people that need to do like unitary reporting and like daily field logs and stuff. Lumber has some cool stuff built in around like gamification. So like people that, do timesheets on time or early, or like meet their schedules, or like you can build different criteria and you can reward employees with like, oh, you filled in your timesheet on time for 3 months, you get a $20 gift card or whatever it is. So they've actually kind of got a cool like gamification thing built into their solution.
That is so fun.
Public people looking on the other side, those are two really strong, like I said, construction specific payroll solutions that we have lots of customers that use both, that again, very, very strong and offer, quite a suite of different functionalities.
Yes. And listen, okay, so I just want to publicly say, this is my public service announcement. If anybody ever offered me a game badge or even a small nominal amount of $20 after 3 months or however long, maybe even a year, I would have so much more fun logging my time. And I would most certainly try to keep that streak going, right? Kind of just like going, was that Duolingo, right? You've got a 10-day streak. Let's keep going.
Exactly. It's like the Candy Crush of time tracking.
Yes. But they're made to be addictive. And so that's what I need with my timekeeping skills for sure.
Yeah. So I wanted to throw those two out there. I mean, one thing I will say, if I could just take one kind of like, I guess, further pass at the payroll side of things is, yes, we can integrate with other payroll solutions. You know, people will come to us and say, oh, I already have Paylocity or Paycom or something like that. And again, a ton of them have pre-built integrations on the marketplace. I mean, if you just come and Google, you know, Sage Intacct Marketplace, you'll see, oh yeah, Paylocity's got a pre-built integration. You know, a lot of them do Paycor, Paycom, et cetera. I will say our customers generally, those other ones aren't necessarily, they don't have job costs down. So they're not like, my first recommendation to mine would be the Sage Intacct payroll with ADP or MITRE or Lumber. But for those of you that have a payroll solution that you like, or you're just not ready to move, we have plenty of integrations with other products as well.
That's right. You can still sit at our table, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, and I know we're at time, but if you've got 2 or 3 more minutes, I'd love for you to tell us about what a Sage Intacct migration is like, right? So either for the folks that are on Sage 100, 300, or for people coming from somewhere like, we'll pick on QuickBooks again.
Absolutely. Yeah. So migration. So generally, we at Accordant, we have a 6-phase implementation methodology. And generally our implementations take, 4 to 6 months kind of on average. And that includes, a very thorough, like I was very big on discovery upfront, a very thorough kind of prerequisite data gathering phase, discovery, a build out, going through building out the environment, modeling it, doing validations of all the modules with your subject matter experts, training all of your users. We have a very kind of regimented process around that. And the reason being is because like I get a lot of concerns with people or had bad experiences in the past where they're like, yeah, we went and we did discovery and they set the system up and then we just like went live and we like learned it as we were going. And like, we don't want to do that. Like we want to make sure everybody feels good and has all their questions answered before we do that cut over. And then we have an ongoing support team, totally separate, and client enrichment group that helps people with those phase 2 projects, a year from now, 2 years from now, kind of like we were talking about. So yeah, we're very, we have a very structured process. Anybody that's interested, I'm happy. Obviously I used to live that life, so I'm happy to talk about.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. And then, so I know this is something that, because I'm personally dealing with it right now. What about the actual data migration? Do you guys do that, or do you have to partner with someone else?
So that's a good question. It's one I get a lot from people. So because at Accordant, we have so many clients that are on Sage 100 Contractor, Sage 300 CRE. We've actually built some special tools to help people migrate data from 300 to Intacct.
Nice.
For those of you that are on Procore as well, we also have some special tools to migrate Procore data over. So, and I think we're just in the next couple of months also unveiling some data migration tools for 100 Contractors. So you can say you heard it here first. Hopefully my team doesn't yell at me. Hopefully that wasn't a secret. And then we have some other firms. So one of the big ones that works within Sage Intacct is actually a data migration firm that all they do is help people move data from whatever XYZ systems to Intacct, called Platform Transition. So they're a firm that we partner with a lot of people coming from QuickBooks or Viewpoint or, there you go. Exactly.
What was the second name again? Yeah.
Yeah. Platform Transition. So we work with them a lot, but yeah, like I said, we actually have some pretty cool stuff that our team has built in-house. We have a dedicated, what we call an ETL, extract, translate, load team.
Nice.
That helps people, like I said, just because we have so many 100, 300 customers that very specifically work with the customers on those 2 products migrating to Intacct.
Yeah. And what a smart thing for your development team to do, because they're doing the same thing over and over again. You might as well make a little script out of it or something.
Exactly. And the other nice thing for those of you that this is a Sage thing, for those of you that are on 100 Contractor or 300 CRE or some sort of Sage product. Another thing that's nice is Sage also has a loyalty program in place. So people upgrading from an older Sage system to Intacct, you get 1 free license to your existing environment for free for 5 years. So if you're on 300 and you want to keep that active for 2 or 3 years for historical reference, whatever, you can do that for free as part of Sage's loyalty program.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because people love to go look at things from the past, right? So their old filing cabinet. And if we took away their filing cabinet, where are they going to go? Right.
Yeah.
So they've got to be able to have something. So then I just want to, and last thing, I promise, I just want to clarify right before we leave, because that reminded me of the user licenses for Sage and how like precious they are. So do we have that with Sage Intacct now, or it's just a subscription fee based on our modules?
So it's similar and different from legacy. So it's similar in the sense that, yes, the subscription is based on the number of user licenses and the type of user license. The difference is one, it's not by module. So like with 300 and such, like you had to have X amount of licenses to job costs and AP and AR and billing, where with Intacct, if you have a license, like you have access, like you can see all the modules. Now there's certain levels, like there's certain read-only ones versus like full use users, but it's, you don't buy a license by module. The difference, or one of the other big differences, is concurrency. So the older systems, and again, not just Intacct, not just 100 or 300, but a lot of legacy systems are based off of concurrent users, where 100 people could log in, but if I had 5 concurrent licenses, any 5 could be in there, but only 5 at a time. That part. Where Intacct, and one of the things I didn't touch on, has audit logs on absolutely everything. Like anything in the system, you can go in and see timestamp, user, you can see user access logs, who logged in, what IP address they logged in from. In order to give that sort of granular reporting, every user has to have their own license. So unlike 300, where you could have 5 licenses and 80 people could use it, just no more than 5 at a time, in Intacct, if 80 people log in, each of the people need their own license so that you can have that auditability. Yeah. And to be honest, when you're looking for that needle in the haystack and then you find the needle, you often, I can't think of one time I didn't want to know this information, but you want to know who done it. Yep. Right. Yep. And it's not a thing about you being in trouble. It's just that you might maybe need another lesson on whatever that item was. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So it's, that's one of the big things too, is in the system, is, like I said, there's so much I didn't even touch on, but audit trails and that sort of thing, of like being able just to go back, or like a lot of times it's like, what is that Spider-Man meme where they're all pointing at each other like, oh, I entered that. Yeah. And, to be honest, there's been a couple of times where it's not that we did anything illegal, but in my lifetime, I've had a couple of times where I just said, you know what, I don't want my user login on that entry. I would be happy to let you do it, sorry, but it's not me. Yep. Exactly. We're not going to defer all that revenue that to January for next year's taxes. Right. I just can't be a part of that. Whatever it was, I don't know anything about it, but you're welcome to do it, right? That's another thing. I didn't even talk about user-defined books. We can do colorful accounting entries in user-defined books. I didn't even talk about user-defined books. Man. Okay, so it sounds like we're going to need a part 2, guys. So look out for that. If you had any curious questions or anything you'd want or encourage us to do a Sage Intacct part 2, just drop it in the comments for us. This link will stay up. As soon as we're done here, it'll start with the replay. And then, of course, it'll be available on YouTube as well. And Zach, thank you so much for joining us here today. Like we said, we could have talked for at least another hour, and that would have been just as fun. Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on today, Maria. Yeah, thanks. It was a good time. And everybody else, have a great weekend. Yes, thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.